World's Yearling Sale. Make plans for the Keeneland September Yearling Sale September 13th through the 24th. Visit theworldsyearlingsale.com to learn more.
Good morning. It is 9:28, Wednesday, August 11th. This is the TDN Writers Room presented by Keeneland. My name is Joe Bianca. I'm the associate editor of the Thoroughbred Daily News, and today we are going to party like it's episode 99.
Bill Finley from the Thoroughbred Daily News, and that was an obvious reference to Prince. Everybody knows that. But how about this? We talk a lot about in this show about Minnesota thoroughbreds and breeding, etc. Prince is a Minnesota bred. There you go.
I like how you tied all that in.
Yes.
Wow. All right, a lot of pressure. John Green, general manager of DJ Stable, and I feel like this is like deja vu all over again. Don't you feel like that we've done this before?
Yeah, I mean, 99 shows. It's a long time, Yeah, 99 plus one, I think. So yeah, next week is our 100th episode. We'll be at Saratoga live. Come say hi if you're in the area or at the track. They got a pretty nice setup that's going to be involved, I think. And yeah, we're going to record a day early. It'll be Tuesday instead of Wednesday, and we're all looking forward to it. So hope to see some of your faces up at Saratoga.
Are we going to have a Bill Finley dunk tank? Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah, can we raise money for a charity of some sort?
I'm sure we
all
can.
for it. Yeah.
I'm sure we can for the Jockeys Guild or something like that. All right. So come ask questions and throw baseballs at Bill's head.
Wear something you don't care about, Bill. Which is a Red Sox shirt at this point.
That's something we don't care about. Zing!
Got it in. We got it in. The TDN Writers Room is presented by Keeneland, home of the World's Yearling Sale. Make plans to attend the Keeneland September Yearling Sale starting Monday, September 13th, and the catalog is now available at catalog.keeneland.com. 4,034 yearlings catalog for the Keeneland September Sale. We're all looking forward to that. And John is now cheating on the show right now by looking at the Keeneland September catalog.
Yeah, I'm on hip number 1200 actually right now, just going through book 3 because it's a plethora of good horses.
Did you sleep at all? You just going through hip?
This is like Christmas and Hanukkah all wrapped up into one. Is when the Keeneland September Sale catalogs get downloaded.
That's why John's got the industrial sized iced tea over there, so he can get through the catalog by the end of the day. But yeah, we're looking forward to that. 4,034 yearlings starts Monday, September 13th. Be there. All right, so we had a great Saturday, great weekend really of racing, especially at Saratoga. It felt a little bit like a little Travers preview day for me with the grade ones and the breakout performances. Travers is obviously going to be 2 weeks from Saturday. And we had the headliner for sure is Knicks Go. There's a lot of other horses that I would like to talk about as well, but I think we should start with Knicks Go and the Whitney because it was a dominant performance, and he's such an enigmatic horse because he's just one of those horses that if he's able to clear, it almost doesn't matter what the fractions are. He's just going to finish and be basically impossible to catch. And once he cleared going into that first turn, it looked for a little bit like Swiss Skydiver was going to go with him. But once he was able to clear under Joel Rosario, it really became an uphill battle for the other 4 horses in the race. He looked like the lone speed on paper. It played out that way. The only horse ever to really challenge him throughout the race was Swiss Skydiver. She came after him on the far turn as well. And I thought Joel Rosario did a really good job because Knicks Go is one of those horses that, he's brilliant when he's able to clear and just able to go do his thing and be alone on the lead. But if he gets eyeballed early in the race, he's not the same horse. We saw it when he backed up to 4th in the Met Mile. We saw it when he backed up to 4th in the Saudi Cup. But he's brilliant when he's allowed to get loose. And Rosario not only got him loose, but then made sure that he didn't get eyeballed on the far turn because it looked like Swiss Skydiver was going to give him a run for his money. There was a brief second where it looked like the race was in doubt, but Rosario kept after him and also took Swiss Skydiver wide off the turn, which I thought helped increase that advantage and really kind of left the race with no doubt, and it was over by the 8th pole. I thought some of the also-rans ran well. I thought Maxfield, considering the pace and the scenario he was up against, did well to get second in there. And Swiss Skydiver even fading to 4th. I thought since she was the only one to actually challenge Knicks Go at any point in the race, I thought she ran well, especially since this was a backup plan for her. She was supposed to run in a grade 3 against fillies and mares. Instead, Kenny McPeak, ever the sportsman, reroutes her to the most prestigious grade 1 for older horses at Saratoga. And, I think all things considered, she ran valiantly. I'm interested to see where she runs next, and it'll be good to see her back on her game because she's had kind of an up and down year. But those are my thoughts on the Whitney. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, Joe, you have a situation in Knicks Go where I think he's the most talented horse among the older males, and I think if you include the 3-year-olds, he'll eventually face in the Breeders' Cup as Classic as well. And And plus, he has this tremendous advantage. And you spoke about this. Speed is such a weapon. And particularly in a horse like this. So he doesn't need to go 47-4 to the half to be able to bottom out the field and cruise around there. He can go 46 flat and still win. I mean, you don't want to go much faster than that, but he doesn't need to have that soft kind of pace. He can go out there and he can run hard, and he can just, we see horses like this from time to time. He can just run his opponents off their feet. So now he wins the Whitney. Whatever went wrong in the Met Mile, Brad Coxe says he's not a one-turn horse, and it looks like he is, right about that, because the Met Mile was nothing like what he's been doing now in the race at Prairie Meadows and his comeback race in the Whitney. But now, so he's looking at the Breeders' Cup Classic. Cox has now talked about that. And it's always, you have to preface this by if he runs his race. But if he runs his race in whatever his prep is going to be, and it looks like he is going to run again, not going to take 2.5 months off before the Breeders' Cup. He will actually run somewhere, according to Brad Cox. And then coming into the Breeders' Cup Classic itself, short of him having a really off day, I mean, frankly, I don't see him losing, or I don't see any scenario where somebody would be able to beat him. You talk about, Maxfield in the race. He is a really, really good horse, and he ran a really, really good race, and he was second best. At no point in the race was he ever any threat to beat Knicks Go, and he ran a solid second in this race that was the best 5-horse field we've seen in a long time. I mean, there shouldn't have been any. I was kind of remiss about, or wanted to complain about the fact they only had 5 horses, but when you have that good a field of 5 horses, there's you shouldn't complain about that race. But nonetheless, John, I mean, let's get your thoughts. But do you give me a scenario where you can beat this horse? I don't see it.
The only way that you're going to be able to beat a horse like Knicks Go is you're hoping that he has an off day and that somebody goes out with him and pressures him, keeps him pinned to the rail, keeps him pinned between 2 horses, and really has to exert itself. But anytime a horse of this caliber can go out and relax between 6 furlongs and 8 furlongs and go in a pedestrian 24 and change, it's going to be tough to beat a horse like that. And quite frankly, the race played out numbers-wise exactly the way you would think it would. Knicks Go ran a 111 Beyer, which was a little bit less than his, career best 113 last time, but, right within his wheelhouse. Maxfield actually improved, continued to improve from a 99, 105, 103. And I don't know what his Beyer was in this race, but had to have been.
It was 105.
105, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, so he continued to improve as well. Silver State, ran his 100 Beyer number, I'm assuming. Swiss Skydiver, again, probably ran somewhere close to 100. So, on paper, it all played out the way you thought it would. If By My Standards in the 1 hole didn't stumble at the start and maybe went to the lead, would it have been different? I don't think so. I think everyone kind of ran their race, and it just worked out where Knicks Go is right now the best horse in the country, and showed it in the Whitney, and in other races during the course of this year, we've kind of made an excuse for Knicks Go. Oh, it was too far of a shuttle, and for him to go out and win overseas. Oh, he just came back, and the Met Mile was 1 turn, and that's why he didn't run well in there. And then Prairie Meadows. Well, what kind of field was that really when he was 1 to 5 and everything like that? Well, he ran against some very good horses. He ran against some credible horses. Maxfield is an outstanding horse. Swiss Skydiver is an outstanding horse. Silver State, by my standards, are very good horses in their own right, and he just dominated them.
Yeah, and that was a very good field. I don't want to be a hypocrite because we railed about the 4-horse CCA Oaks field, but this was high quality. It might not have been the quantity, but it really was high quality. And Maxfield, I don't know. I think the 1 1/4 might be an equalizer in the Classic because, as brilliant as Knicks Go is, and as well as he's able to go fast and keep going, I just think a 1 1/4 is a little bit of a different animal than a 1 1/8. And, Brad Cox says he's not a 1-turn horse. Maybe he's not, but, up until Saturday, you want to say the Pegasus, but I felt like his best race before Saturday was the Dirt Mile. I thought that was his most impressive race. So it was at least a little bit of a question going to a 1 1/8 on a tiring track like Saratoga, and obviously he answered those questions with flying colors. But a 1 1/4, I got to see it. The question is going to be who shows up against him, whether or not there's going to be other speed, because that's the determining factor, I think, in terms of how Knicks Go runs is whether or not anyone is able to go with him early in the race. And, this harkens back for me to, when they used to run Shake the Bank to set up Better Talk Now in those turf races and the rabbits. But, the qualifying system for the classics have kind of gotten rid of those intentional rabbit situations. I would, if that were still allowed and still a common thing, I would think that this would be a perfect scenario where you would enter a rabbit in the Breeders' Cup Classic to try to soften him up, because that really is going to be the determining factor. But it's easy to say right now, well, there's no one that can touch him, because on Saturday obviously there was nobody that could touch him, and he's run the biggest figures of any older horse, especially now with Mystic Guide on the sidelines. I got to see it at 1.25 miles if there is other speed in the race. I think that's a different animal. And I think especially if he gets another one of these preps where he's able to just, bottom out the field, like Bill says, and bowl along on the lead and wins easy, I think he's going to be overbet. I think he's going to be 3-5, 4-5 in the Classic. And it's one of those old axioms. You don't bet a horse at a short price doing something they've never done before. And he's never been 1.25 miles. And he's got, to me, he still has that hurdle to clear. But it's obviously a lot of time between now and then, and we'll see what else happens in the handicap division. But I wanted to move on to a couple other races from Saturday, because I thought there were a couple other really nice performances. Bella Sophia in the test. She's interesting because she is very modestly bred. She was a $30,000 purchase, trained by Rudy Rodriguez, and she has been brilliant from the start. She won her debut by 11.5 lengths. She got beat when she was second in the Jersey Girl, but then came right back, had another blowout win at Belmont. And Saturday was kind of the acid test for her, and she passed it with flying colors. Not just because she won, and not just because she won by open lengths, but the way that she won. Because up until then, she had been a one-way speed horse in much of the way that Knicks Go is, but even more of a need to lead type, I think, because she was a sprinter. I think there's so little variation in those dirt sprints. It's so hard. It's so much harder to get the lead. Because she had to run very, very fast in her previous races to get that lead, and you wonder if they're able to sustain that speed while laying off another horse. Well, she did it on Saturday. The Bob Baffert horse went out to the front, and that would have been an interesting scene if Bob Baffert had shipped in and won the test with his first starter at Saratoga since the whole Medina Spirit thing. But she backed up pretty quickly in the stretch. But yeah, Bella Sophia was able to lay off her and still have that same punch in the end. I thought super sensational for Mark Casse. He also ran really well to be second. Search Results was a little bit dull in third, but I just think it was one of those races where it was very wide open on paper, and I don't think there should have been necessarily a heavy favorite. The other horse I wanted to mention, there's a couple others we could get to, like Art Collector, who's back in the Alydar. It was good to see him run a big race again. Fast Boat, who I think never gets any, never really gets any respect, winning the Troy public sector on the nice ride by Flavien Prat in the Hall of Fame. But the horse I think that also stood out to me was Warlike Goddess in the Glens Falls. I don't care what the buyer figure is. It was a 99. Doesn't matter. I don't care if it was an 85. She was coming off a layoff. She was a lightly raced turf marathon filly. This was 1.5 miles, and she basically carried Julian Leparoux to that win. Like, all he did, and he was in just to ride her, as far as I know. All he did was keep her out of trouble, and she did the rest. And she exploded past that field, went last to first. And it's hard to get excited about a filly turf marathoner. It's not usually a division that gets your heart racing with some of these grade 3 races. But she is super, super impressive and exciting, and it's going to be interesting to see where she ends up next. I would guess she's going to be in the Flower Bowl, because that's a 1.25 mile race, grade 1. But she was crazy impressive to me. I wonder if there's anything else that stood out to you guys from the weekend.
Yeah, I just want to throw one more race in there. It's not something that stood out. Matter of fact, it's kind of the opposite. But you didn't mention the Saratoga Derby, $1 million turf race for 3-year-olds. And, we see this all the time, that these races can turn out to be such easy pickings for European horses. And, you don't need Aidan O'Brien to send over his best or his second or his third best horse. We see time and time these guys, again, win these races. Horse State of Rest was 1 for 7 lifetime, had never won a graded stakes race for the other O'Brien, Joseph O'Brien, the son of Aidan O'Brien. And I don't think this field came up as strong as some of the previous races in this series, but it's got to be kind of a little bit of a blow to the Americans that have these horses. We can't beat State of Rest. I mean, what are we going to do? Maybe he'll turn out to be a really good horse. Maybe he'll turn out to win the Breeders' Cup Turf. I don't know about that, but that was something that I thought was worth noting. That we're putting up a lot of money in these races, and they're just sending it over in a wheelbarrow to Europe.
Yeah, and that's $1 million purse. I mean, it wasn't like it was, just kind of a rinky-dink race or a quote-unquote average kind of grade one. That was for $1 million, which is a lot of money. I'm really excited that Joseph O'Brien won the race. He's a young up-and-coming trainer in Europe, and obviously the son of Aidan O'Brien.
John, hasn't he trained a horse for you?
He has. He trained Earthstrike for us. You're exactly right, over in Europe. And just a really good guy, very humble, still kind of learning his way around, the upper echelons of trainers. But I think he's definitely got the ability and the trainer's chops, and he was a rider, so he knows on both ends, not only watching horses but being on them, what cues to look for. I know in the O'Brien camp, whether it's Aidan or his two sons Joseph or Donica, that they are actually focusing on bringing some horses over for this series, obviously, and then they're going to keep some horses here for Kentucky Downs, and even though they're not going to run for the same purse money as other horses that are Kentucky breds, for example, at the Kentucky Downs circuit, they feel like that race course and the way that it's set up is very similar to the way that they run over in Europe, and it makes a lot of sense. So they're bringing actually some horses over to stay, not only for races like these, but for Kentucky Downs, maybe Keeneland, and then keeping them over for California, for the Breeders' Cup. So I think we're going to be hearing a lot about the O'Briens. We talked last year about Mother Earth, who was a long shot in the juvenile filly race that Aidan, the father, trained and ran a great second that day. And that was kind of a long shot also that a lot of people didn't think about. So they're coming over here in droves, and it's going to be, one if by land, two if by sea, because the British are coming and the Irish are coming. I want to go back to the test because not only was it an impressive move by Bella Sophia because she just scooted away from the rest of the field, in the last eighth of a mile, but you look at the field in the race, and there were 8 horses in that race, and 7 of them finished first, second, or third in a graded stake race. Either they had won a grade 3 or they had placed in a grade 2 or grade 1. The only exception was Bella Sophia, so now she can add her name to it. So you look at how deep that field was. Whether it was Illumination or Super Sensational or Obligatory and Make Mischief, Search Results. I mean, there were a lot of really good fillies. And kudos to my man Joe here. About 10 minutes before the race, he tweeted, "How is Super Sensational 13-1?" And he was absolutely spot on. And the filly ran a really great race. And we'll talk to Mark Casse, the trainer, later on in the show. But I thought that was a really impressive race for Bella Sophia. And also Super Sensational really showed her chops running there. We talked about State of Rest. The other thing that I noticed that I thought was really interesting is how many non-Kentucky breds won graded stake races this weekend. Obviously, the big horse Nick Sco is a Maryland bred. State of Rest is an Irish bred. Kun Lima, who won the Saratoga Oaks, is a Texas bred, which I thought was interesting. And then Papa Cap, also trained by Mark Casse, a gun runner's son, who won the Best Pal, a Florida bred. So you were talking about Minnesota breds in that sale. You don't have to have a Kentucky bred to win graded stake races on big weekends.
That's definitely true, for sure. And just to follow up, the 2-year-olds were also a story this week, and Gun Runner in particular having back-to-back days with graded stakes winners as a first crop sire. That's a pretty big deal. Now the figures didn't come back too big, but it's still early in the 2-year-old season, so that's not that big of a deal. Like you said, Papa Cap won the Best Pal, and then Wicked Halo on Sunday won the Adirondack for Steve Asmussen. We're going to talk about him and his breaking that record in a little bit, but that was an interesting horse because he trained both the sire and the dam won the Adirondack 6 years ago. So that was like an interesting full circle victory for Steve Asmussen and the Winchell Thoroughbreds organization. But just going back to the Saratoga Derby for a second, I was shocked. And let me say this, I did well on Saturday. It was my first good day of the meet, betting wise. And part of the reason that State of Rest was 21-1 in that race. I understand that I knew he was going to be the longest choice of the Euros, but I was shocked that he was bigger than 10-1. I thought the 4 Euros would take all the play and they would be, 2-1, 4-1, 6-1, 8-1. All the money came in on Bolshoi Ballet, a little bit on Cadillac. The other two were kind of ignored. And if you had told me before the race that a Euro horse is going to win this at 21-1, I would have said you were crazy. Like, how did the horse get off at that price? And that, that's a very interesting thing that John brought up about them sticking around to run at Kentucky Downs, because there is a lot of money for the taking there. And no disrespect to Mike Maker, who does a great job, obviously, with turf horses, but he has ruled that meet for years and years and years with, I think, lesser horses than the O'Briens have. And then, Chad Brown has honestly just started to really point to that meet as well. It's just, there's so much money to be had at Kentucky Downs. And like you said, it's a European style turf course. It only makes sense for the O'Briens and maybe some other trainers to come over, because, this is, I know they're not grade ones. I know they don't have grade one races. I know, stallion wise, it's probably not, it's not something you're pointing to in the second half of the year, but in terms of money, you can't do much better than Kentucky Downs for that short meet. So that's a very interesting development that I think we got to keep an eye on as well. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Spendthrift Farm. Obviously, a huge week for Spendthrift. It's going to be a big week for Spendthrift basically at every sale because of Into Mischief. Into Mischief had his highest priced yearling sell at Fasig-Saratoga, highest priced yearling ever for him. $2.6 million was the sale topper out of Grade 1 Stakes winner Paula Queen, sold to Coolmore. Spendthrift also bought or was partners in buying 5 yearlings at the sale. And also Lord Nelson did well, had a couple yearlings sell, both fillies. One went for $490,000, one went for $290,000, and Bolt Doro as well. We talked about him before and kind of the way that he's gotten the sales world a buzz. He had 10 yearling sell at Saratoga, grossing $4.07 million, which is pretty damn good for a horse who doesn't have, runners on the track yet. Average of $267,500. His top sale and the third highest sale of the entire auction was the half brother to Rachel Alexandra, who went for $1.4 million to Larry Best and OXO Equine. So, Spendthrift somehow continues to be on the rise. Even with Into Mischief, they continue to build a stallion roster beneath him and build a deep bench that I think continues to grow. And that was, for Bolt Doro to have that kind of those kind of results, and obviously the horse is bred well and half to Rachel and all that, but still, for a horse who doesn't have runners on the track, to have a horse sell for $1.4 million in his first crop of yearlings, that seems like a big deal to me, John.
It really is, especially when you consider that Bolt Doro, he's not a $100,000 stud fee, $75,000. I mean, he's a modestly priced horse for a first-year stallion. And to get those kind of results, the average, as you mentioned, to sell one for $1.4 million. I mean, think about that. Think about how much money that is for an unraced yearling, basically, unproven horse, and to obviously bred so well on the female side. But still, anytime you're eclipsing 7 figures, which I think is what Bill brings in per session here, per show, right? Isn't he? It is always an accomplishment. And then, Into Mischief, it's almost blasé. And we almost like, oh yeah, he sold another horse for $1 million. Oh, he sold a horse for $2.6 million. Ho-hum. It's because he's really good. He's a top stallion and probably arguably the best stallion in the world right now. So it's good to see those kind of horses, sell and get into good hands, like in the Coolmore program. The other thing I thought was interesting regarding Spendthrift and the sale is that they actually took advantage. They were the first ones to ever buy a horse with cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah,
so they're, again, on the cutting edge of everything.
We'll be right back after this message from Spendthrift Farm. Owning multiple grade stakes winning racehorses like Decorated Invader is attainable with a racing partnership with West Point Thoroughbreds. Partnerships enable you to spread your ownership across several horses for less than it costs to own one horse alone. This increases your racetrack action and your chances for a big horse. Learn more about why West Point Thoroughbreds is the gold standard in racing partnerships at westpointtb.com. westpoint.com. Similarly to Spendthrift, it's always a big week for West Point, it seems, at these sales. They had a big Fasig sale as well. They were on the ticket for 5 different yearlings, grossing $2.85 million. Top purchase was the day one session topper, a filly, a daughter of Tapit, brought just a smidge under $1 million, $990,000, with partners Scarlet Oak Racing and NBS Staple. And he also bought in on Coles by Quality Road, City of Light Army Mule, and Bolt Doro. So taking some chances on some newer stallions that I would think are going to be successful. We already talked about Bolt Doro, but City of Light and Army Mule are both very, very interesting as well. And then they had some racing action as well. I tweeted about it on Saturday. Very nice looking turf winner in the opening race on Saturday, named Dripping Gold, was by Lemon Drop Kid. He was a $300,000 purchase at the OBS March sale, consigned, ironically enough, by another sponsor, Woodford Thoroughbreds. But I thought that was a really nice looking debut. And it was, first of all, it was amazing to see a Lemon Drop Kid sell for $300,000 at the OBS March sale to begin with, because those aren't the kinds of horses he usually gets. But trained by Shug McGahee out of a Danzig mare. You don't see too many Danzig mares still producing, so you would think that that horse is going to get better going longer, and had a really nice debut victory, going a mile and a 16th on the Saratoga turf on Saturday morning, and Saturday in the first race, a little after the morning, like 12:30. Shockingly, it was like 6-1. I thought the West Point guys bet. What were you holding back for, guys? But no, that was a very, very nice win, and best of luck to all the guys and gals at West Point on that horse and in the horses that they picked up at the sale. So the other big story of the weekend was Steve Asmussen, and we covered it a lot in the TDN. Bill did a lot of good coverage on it. The chase for 9,446 to become the winningest North American trainer of all time. It was only a matter of time. He had 14 horses on Saturday and was tied for the lead, so you had to figure he was going to get it. But what a fitting way it was for him to get that record at Saratoga with a 2-year-old, carrying the Winchell Thoroughbreds colors, ridden by Ricardo Santana. Like, if you think, especially with Winchell going back, Santana more recently, but if you think of a Steve Asmussen winner, a really nice Steve Asmussen barn winner, you think those maroon silks with the W on them and Ricardo Santana with those white goggles riding them to victory. So I thought that was honestly a perfect way for him to break the record. I thought Naira did a great job of honoring it and really celebrating it. And it was a great scene at Saratoga. And it was another one of those moments where it was great that fans were back. This would not have been the same experience, I think, for Steve Asmussen and everybody in that barn had it been last year with COVID and no fans there. This was great to have that kind of group celebration amongst the fans. But Bill's been covering this, so I wanted to get his take on it.
Yeah, I mean, we knew for 4 or 5 years at the very least this was coming. You could just do the math. I mean, Dale Baird, previous record holder, had 9,445, and Asmussen's averaging so many winners a year. So it wasn't climactic, or it wasn't a story that you looked at and really like, wow, look at what happened here, because it was this steady progression towards the record. But I think what I did, and I think what a lot of people do, is now that it's over, take a step back and look at the enormity of what this guy has accomplished. And he's only 55 years old, which in the training game is very young. He's got easily 20 some odd good years left. So, what kind of numbers is he going to put up? I mean, we're looking at maybe 15,000 winners before he's done. And then the other amazing thing is that, look, there are a lot of good trainers out there. I think you could say that Steve Asmussen belongs in the same conversation with any one of the top guys in the sport. But what separates him, and we talked to Steve when we had him on the show, is that he has this insatiable thirst for wins. And I mean, all these guys want to win, but nobody compares to this. And that's why he's running at Louisiana Downs in $5,000 non-winners of 2 lifetime races. I mean, you think Chad Brown would ever, do something like that? Of course not. But that says a lot about his makeup. And, this was about a lot more than just a good trainer reaching accomplishment. It was about a very unique human being who has this work ethic. He always says it came from his parents. That's great. And, has this work ethic and this just need to succeed, this need to win races. And, when you put it together at the end of the day, you get 9,446 winners.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about Asmussen, and you've touched on this in some of your writing about it, is that he's not a guy who's been doing it for 40 years. He relatively speaking, his success has come in the last quarter century. It's not like he's been doing this since the early 80s and he's just a compiler and he's just, stacking up wins. It's, basically in the last 25 years or so that he's kind of exploded into this, stardom and success that he's had. Joining a West Point Thoroughbreds partnership can vault you into the world of instant camaraderie among people surrounding high-class horses and stakes action for a fraction of the cost of trying to do it on your own. Learn more at westpointtb.com. We'll be right back after this message from West Point Thoroughbreds.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Legacy Bloodstock. If you think that 50 years combined experience in the horse business could benefit your program, give Tommy or Wendy a call. They personally advise on each horse as if they were their own. Legacy had a graduate have some success last week in Miss Alacrity, who is a daughter of Munnings, trained by Wesley Ward. She won the Colleen Stakes at Monmouth. She's now undefeated in her first two starts. Debut, she won by 10 lengths at Belmont in May. She was a $150,000 Keeneland November graduate, also a New York bred, and I'm sure they got a big consignment at Keeneland September, John.
They do. They have over 60 yearlings in the Keeneland September sale, spread out amongst all the books, with the top stallions that you'd expect to hear. It's the horses and the stallions, Always Dreaming, American Pharoah, Classic Empire, Distorted Humor, Empire Maker. It's all the ones that we expect to see and hear about. And probably equally as important is don't forget that the Keeneland November sale deadline is coming up. So why not give Legacy a shot?
That's nice. That's a little sponsorship marriage that we love right here. So shout out to Legacy and Keeneland. Off the track at Saratoga, we had some action over the past weekend. It was Hall of Fame Day on Friday morning at the Fasig-Saratoga Pavilion. Obviously, always a big day and good to honor the greats of the past and greats of the present. That's one thing that racing is unique in, is that you don't have to wait for someone to retire and then wait 5 years and then to induct them into the Hall of Fame, as we saw in Canton at the Pro Football Hall of Fame over the weekend with Peyton Manning and others getting inducted. It was a star-studded class there, and it was a star-studded class here in racing. And I think the big headliner, Todd Pletcher, American Pharoah, Mark Casse, who we're going to speak to in a little bit, Wise Dan, who I always loved. Those were the main names. Pletcher, I think, was the top billing there, and obviously extremely well deserved. He's been a top trainer in this sport now for several decades. Obviously came up under Wayne Lucas. He credited a lot of his success to Jeff Lucas, who was Wayne's son, who unfortunately had a traumatic brain injury. And Pletcher said that there was no doubt that he would be standing next to him in the Hall of Fame had that not happened. So I thought that was an interesting look into Pletcher's upbringing and his background in the sport. The other American Pharoah thing is a little interesting. It was a little interesting to see Ahmed Zayat, considering all of the stuff that's swirling around him, all the bankruptcy noise, and it seems like every other week there's someone who's filing suit because Ahmed Zayat allegedly won't pay them money he owes them. So that was a little bit awkward. I noticed Bob Baffert didn't show up at the Hall of Fame, probably pretty smart on his part. So that was unfortunate because American Pharoah was a great horse and was such it was such a seismic moment for racing when he won the Triple Crown. And it was great for racing too that he ran the rest of the year. And, even though he lost in the Travers, it was such a big draw to get him at Saratoga. And then obviously he had that tour de force in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And he was such an important horse for racing that brought so much positive attention to the sport that it's unfortunate that the human connections around him have kind of sullied his legacy at least a little bit. And, I didn't see the whole thing, but I heard that there was a little bit of a tepid applause for Ahmed Zayat and Justin Zayat, which I think, is reasonable.
It was deservedly so. I mean, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Joe. It's such a shame because here was our first Triple Crown winner in almost 40 years. I mean, it's 37 years between Triple Crown winners. And he was, just such a class act on the racetrack, American Pharoah I'm talking about. And through no fault of his own, the people that he was involved with are now dragging his legacy kind of through the mud. And I know we all have different feelings and thoughts about American Pharoah, about his racing career. I think he's, one of the best young up-and-coming stallions that's out there, sire of a number of great horses, including Bill's favorite, Harvey's Little Goyle, that we talk about on the show. And it was... When I tell you that when Todd Pletcher went up there, he got a standing ovation. When Mark Casse went up there, he got a standing ovation. And most of the inductees, if not all of them, except for one, got the appropriate amount of response. And I think everyone wanted to do that for American Pharoah. But when Zayat went up to go, accept the plaque, tepid, I think, is a very, aggressive, description. I think people were kind of like, oh, really? We have to listen to this guy, drone on about, and I guess to Zayat's credit, he, really threw shade on himself and talked only about the horse and how the horse was America's horse and all the positive things, because what else could he do? I mean, what else was he going to say? I was so smart in getting this horse. I was so smart in campaigning this horse and syndicating him, and I don't have any, thing to do with him anymore because of all these other issues, and my trainer is under great scrutiny. Like, he could only talk about the horse, at that point in time. But I think he was up there for 5 minutes, and I read that people thought it was 4 minutes too long.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And again, like, this really has nothing to do with American Pharoah, the animal. He was as classy and as awesome as you could possibly ask a racehorse to be, and transcended the sport, which is what we want, what we hope for these stars is to bring new people into the game and get eyeballs on the sport that wouldn't necessarily be there. And like you said, he's off to an extremely impressive start as a stallion too. So this is nothing against American Pharoah in particular. It just so happens that the human connections around him during his racing career have been embroiled in such controversy since then. I mean, that unfortunately is the way that you have to report the American Pharoah induction, especially because, like you said, Zayat was there to accept the plaque. And it was just, I'd imagine it was incredibly awkward for everybody. And just, it was a lot of tight sphincters in that room. American Pharoah was getting inducted, just like nobody really knew what to say. A lot of cringing going on, but it was. I don't want to let that be the whole story, because it was a great Hall of Fame class, and we missed it last year because of COVID. The induction ceremony was canceled in 2020. So Mark Casse, for example, who was going to be inducted last year, had to wait a whole another year, and it really was a great class with Pletcher and Casse, and like I said, Wisedan. I don't want to forget him as well, and a lot of other good names, but. Yeah, that was kind of the unfortunate, awkward sidebar to what usually should be a complete day of celebration for racing. But that's unfortunately, I think, kind of emblematic of the way racing is right now, is that there are so few like pure feel good stories left. It's just, and when you have one, you gotta grasp onto it and really appreciate it, because we have had this turmoil in the industry, and especially in the past couple of years, it's really snowballed into a lot of different problems, and we try to divert onto a cleaner path going forward. But yeah, it was a little bit of a symbol for racing that even this day when we inducted the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years into the Hall of Fame, there's still like a lot of mixed feelings and a lot of trepidation in terms of truly fully celebrating it. We'll be right back after this message from Legacy Bloodstock.
Being a small family business, I guess we're part of a dying breed. We're really grateful for the people that entrust us. We know it's a huge responsibility.
We're always with your horse every step of the way. When it comes to being at the sales ground, showing your horses, we are with your horse.
Just driving up and down the road every day, there's not a time that I don't look out and feel a responsibility to the sport, the animal, the people that come to invest in the game. I want to see as many people enjoy this sport as they possibly can, because we do have the most beautiful sport in the world.
The Green Group Guest of the Week is sponsored by The Green Group, an accounting, tax, consulting, and advisory firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry. With over 500 clients in the horse business, they have proven strategies to save you taxes. Learn more about how they can help you at www.greenco.com. So we're thrilled to welcome back for the third time newly inducted Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse. Thanks so much for coming on, Mark.
No, thanks for having me, guys.
Great to have you. Always good to talk to you. I wanted to ask, we're gonna play a little bit of your speech right now, where you were talking about your family and when you first got to the Hall of Fame and your determination to get there. Let's play a little bit of that.
Horse racing has always been my life. When I was little, I was reading the racing form instead of comic strips. The worst day of the week was Sunday because there wasn't a form. When my friends were trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives, I always knew what I wanted to be: a horse trainer. My father was a huge part of my education with horses, and I inherited my love of racing from him. On this journey, many family members have had to make sacrifices for me to pursue my career, but none greater than my mom. My dad and I first visited the Hall of Fame here in Saratoga in 1972. When I was 11, I still remember walking around with my mouth wide open in amazement. At the end of the visit, I confidently told my dad, "I will be in here someday." As any good father will do, he said, "Yes, Mark, you will." Well, we did it.
I think that really resonated with people, and was, just to have that emotional connection, that family connection, to really let people in, and how deep racing goes in your blood and your family's blood, and it's continuing on with Norm obviously opening his stable now and doing really well. Can you talk about that and how important it is for you to carry on that family legacy and for that Casse name to continue on in the sport?
Well, it's all I've ever done. It's, I was raised on the racetrack, and so there was a lot of emotion for the Hall of Fame for so many reasons. Saratoga's been my life since I was a little boy. Horse racing's been my life. And obviously, my father passed away 5 years ago, and there were I have so many memories of him there at Saratoga and in the Fasig-Tipton Pavilion and the Hall of Fame. And then, it was something to have my son Norman. As I said, I sired my first, that was not easy to get out. Sire your first graded stakes winning son, trainer's son. It's not easy to get out, but to have him there and just to have the family continue on, and I know my dad would be very proud.
Hey, Mark, congratulations, and thanks for joining us. And one of the things that resonated with me during your Hall of Fame speech was, you, like any Hall of Famer, have had so many good horses over the years and, so many memorable wins. But you really made it a point to single out Tepin as the horse that, I wouldn't say she made your career because you were already made to that point, but the horse that took you to this next level. And, when you look back on all the great horses you've had, the one that really stands out to you, as you said, was Tepin. So tell us more.
Well, and at the time, Bill, when she won the Queen Anne, I knew it was a big deal, but I didn't realize how big it truly was until then watching, lots of good horses go over there and try to win at that, middle distance. It's not easy to go over and beat them at their own game. So that was important. I mean, she did so many great things for us. She obviously won the Breeders' Cup, and I've been asked a million times, what's my biggest victory? And I think doing that, look, winning the Breeders' Cup's big, but there's lots of Breeders' Cups. Winning the Classics is big, but there's lots of Classics. But how many U.S.-based horses go over and win what would be considered a Classic at Royal Ascot? So she wins. And, she was very important to me. I had done a lot of things prior to her, but she got me a lot of recognition, that's for sure. And I think what put us over the top was the 2 Classic wins. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, Mark Casse, do you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? I probably would have said no. I don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. But after the 2 Classic wins, I was like, okay. Yeah, I think I deserve to be in there.
So that rounded out your resume, and certainly, Mark, you have 13 Sovereign Award wins. You're only one of 4 trainers to have been inducted into the Canadian Hall of Fame and the American Hall of Fame, which is really remarkable if you think about it. 3,000 wins. You won the Preakness and the Belmont. Other than the Derby, is there a race that is on your personal checklist where you would say, "Wow, I really want to win X race"?
Not really, John. I'm my racing career, my training career is pretty fulfilled. I do want to win the Kentucky Derby. I'll be disappointed if we're not able to accomplish that. But no, I feel very comfortable where I am now. I just, I would like to continue to win at the top level. Once you win, you want to do it again. And I have a great group of owners. And my day, every day when I start the morning is just to try to make them happy. They've entrusted their good horses to me, and it's my job to get the best out of them. It doesn't matter whether it's a $5,000 claimer or, the Breeders' Cup winner.
I wanted to ask about you've been outspoken about banning clenbuterol. I think that you honestly have brought a lot of movement to the sport in that way. And I think your word means a lot in this industry and your voice means a lot in this industry. So A, are there any other drugs you would like to single-handedly get banned in the sport? But B, more seriously, what's your reaction to the movement that you've seen on clenbuterol since you wrote that op-ed in the TDN?
Well, I'm very proud of that. And I just felt that this time of my life, it was time to give back to the sport. And the sport has some issues with it, and they need to be cleaned up. And I just felt, what? I really don't care who I upset. I'm going to tell it the way I feel it is. And I think there's been some serious movement. We saw a quick turnaround in Canada. They moved quickly. Things have changed in New York, and Kentucky's been a little slow to adapt, but they're getting there. If you said to me, what's the one thing still going on that is disappointing to me? We've made a lot of new rules, and rules are good, but they're only good if they can be enforced. So what happens is the guys, the men and the women that play by the rules, every time you add a rule, it gives us that much bigger disadvantage. There's a lot of people out there that they only live for today, and they're not looking long term, and they'll go and do things, and we can't compete against them. And I don't think that's fair. I just recently had a conversation with a big official, and I said, we have to do something. If we're going to have these rules, it's your job to make sure that they're abided by. And when they're not, they need to go. And if we could do that, it would make our sport much better. And it's very, very frustrating to me. Very frustrating.
Well, I wanted to ask a quick follow-up on that. The Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act theoretically helps that kind of enforcement. What's your feeling on that? First of all, we don't even know if it's going to be implemented on time, but what's your feeling on that? Do you think that obviously it's not going to clean everything up, but do you think that that's going to, make everything that you're talking about better in terms of enforcement?
I sure hope so. That's, that would be my dream. That's why I backed it. We have to do something. We can't just keep saying, oh, it'll be better. It doesn't get better. You have to step out. You have to not be afraid to come out and say the things that bother you and try to fix them. You have no chance if we don't. And so I feel like, I think that's definitely going to help us.
Well, Mark, why don't I stay in the same subject? And, yes, the clenbuterol thing, and again, yes, you deserve a lot of credit for that, seems to be now getting under control. At the same time, look at all that's going on in the sport with the Baffert mess. I mean, every day we have a new story about Jorge Navarro and Jason Service, and there's, dozens of guys out there that, all of us know are cheating to win races. I mean, we can't obviously name names, but there are guys out there that are too good to be true. Are you optimistic that the sport is finally moving in the right direction, or are you more pessimistic that the sport hasn't done nearly enough?
Well, as you said, anybody that was around the sport knew that Navarro and Service were cheating. Look, this is not rocket science. Somebody cannot be that much better than somebody else. It's not like one might gallop their horse 2 miles and one may gallop their 1 mile. There's just not enough variables to make somebody that much better. The way we do better is by, getting better athletes. That's how you become better. And another Hall of Famer I know said one day, I'm not going to say any names, but my son Norman, he said, "What makes you great?" And he goes, "It's what I feed." And he said, "Really? So is there some certain feed that you feed?" He goes, "It's not what I feed, it's who I feed." And that's when you look down and you see those horses have their head, and that's what we're supposed to be. It's supposed to be the horse. And to answer your question, am I optimistic? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would put the day that they arrested Service and Jorge Navarro, that was probably top 5 of one of my best racing days. That is right up there with Christmas, when I was 10. I mean, it was because we all knew it. And as you say, Bill, we know it continues on. And it's very, very frustrating. It's frustrating when you go in and you go into, a gunfight with the knife, and we know it. I keep hearing there's more coming, and they can't come soon enough. And when we get them, they never need to be in racing again. And if we can do that, and I think, I don't know how long it's going to take, but if you're one of those people, beware, because it could be in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's the good thing. So even while they are being successful, they may think they're getting away with it. There are some people still going to go down, and they're not getting away with it.
And Mark, you mentioned before about how important it is to have better stock. And, historically you have about a 13% win percentage with 2-year-olds, but this year you're almost double that. Can you go into a couple of the 2-year-olds that you think are really going to be up and comers or are going to be, running in the Breeders' Cup by year end, maybe starting with Papa Cap?
Well, John, you and I have many conversations. I've always been a big fan of Papa Cat. I thought his race in California was really good. It didn't surprise me. It wasn't the strongest bunch, but I thought he did a really good job. I have a lot of really nice horses, and they kind of will sort themselves out in the next 60 days. I have a horse that's a maiden, that Volcanic, that ran at Saratoga. I think he's a nice horse. We have Diabolical, who she just won the stake at Woodbine. I have a lot of on thin ice. We just had win. Why are we winning a little bit more? You know what? We're getting a lot more young horses. We have a tremendous training center in Ocala. And I give them a lot of credit. We get those horses ready. And look, you got to have the horses. Who knows? I would say to you right now that we have probably 15 to 22-year-olds that could end up being Breeders' Cup horses. It just depends how the next 45 days to 60 days go.
All right, I want to thank now Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse. They're going to be calling you that for the rest of your life. Very, very well deserved. And we really appreciate the time. Mark, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mark. Great job.
Cheers.
Great job.
Bye.
The Green Group Guest of the Week is sponsored by The Green Group, an accounting, tax consulting, and advisory firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry. As this week's Green Group Guest of the Week, Mark Casse will receive a free 1-hour tax consultation. Learn more at greenco.com. We'll be right back after this message from The Green Group.
Why do the most successful owners, breeders, and horsemen select the Green Group as their tax advisor? We simply save them money and know how to make them more successful. Over the past 40 years, founder Leonard Green has owned and bred some of the best racehorses in the history of the sport. His in-depth, hands-on industry knowledge, combined with cutting-edge tax-saving strategies, has produced positive results for his clientele and has made the Green Group the top-rated accounting and tax firm in the business. For a confidential and complimentary consultation, contact us at 732-634-5100 or visit our website at www.greenco.com. The Green Group, proven strategies to save you taxes.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by the Minnesota Thoroughbred Association's 2021 yearling sale coming August 29th at Canterbury Park. A quality selection of yearlings from top Kentucky stallions like Taprit, Race Day, Practical Joke, Cross Traffic, and Wicked Strong. Regional yearling sales have proven to be a great source for affordable and classy future racehorses. Download a catalog today at minnesotabred.com. Just a couple of hips of note from that upcoming sale. Hip 7 is the son of Darley's Midshipman out of Belmont, who's a multiple stakes winning champion older mare in Minnesota, and her first runner is already stakes placed. And Hip 17, son of Golden Sense, consigned by Dove Hill Farm. Dam is a stakes producer and a full sister to Grade 3 winner and Canadian champion Dancing All-Star. And as John was mentioning before, a good horse can come from anywhere. We saw that over the weekend at Saratoga. So get involved at the Minnesota yearling sale coming August 29th. All right, so this is a little bit of late-breaking news that just came in. This hearing was going on this morning. As we were recording, it's up on the TDN website now. We expected this, but Jorge Navarro has withdrawn his plea of not guilty and entered a plea of guilty to count 1 of a superseding federal indictment, which charges Navarro with conspiring with others to administer non-FDA-approved, misbranded, and adulterated drugs, including drugs intended to increase the performance of thoroughbred racehorses, which he believed would be untestable and undetectable by racing authorities. Quoting from TD Thornton's story here, this story is going to be updated throughout the day with more details. But basically, Navarro's singing like a canary, and he is implicating Jason Service. And this is what I said last week, is that the writing on the wall, at least to me, was that these guys changing their pleas from not guilty to guilty and directly implicating Jason Service in their change of plea agreement suggests that the federal government is trying to make Jason Service, for lack of a better word, the ringleader in this alleged scheme. And that seems to be the case here. Navarro now still faces up to 5 years in prison and supposedly has to pay over $25 million of victims of the fraud. Like, where is Jorge Navarro going to get $25 million? He definitely didn't make it on the track. Maybe he made it gambling on some of his horses, allegedly juiced up horses. I don't know. I can't help but think, I don't know if you guys ever saw this. We can't put it on the show because there's too much swearing, but I don't know if you remember, there was like a little bit of a racing viral video a couple of years ago at Monmouth Park, and it was the guy, the guy who owns Monster Racing Stables, I believe. I don't remember the guy's name.
Still very active with a new, very high percentage trainer.
Sure, yeah. Yes. And I don't know his name, don't care to, but it went viral because he was so enthusiastic at the Juice Man, another 40 grand in my pocket. The Juice Man comes through again. How's the Juice Man looking now? That's the thing. And, you know, like Bill said, this guy is still an owner, and hopefully he won't be in the future. But that I always think of that. And I always think of the audacity and the hubris. And that was so indicative of the way people have acted in racing for a very long time, that I'm above the law. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to make all this money. I dare you to stop me. And at least it seems now some of these guys have been stopped. Bill?
Yeah, a couple observations on top of what you said. Jorge Navarro is headed to the Gray Bar Hotel. He will see time in prison. There's no doubt in my mind. Matter of fact, the 5-year sentence, they can only be plea bargained down to, it's not like he's going to serve 6 months. He's going to serve quite a bit of time. And Joe, I'll give you credit, because I didn't really, you saw this before I did, about this thing about service. And as each one of these comes down, it's all over what happens in the courtroom and what the government has to say. For whatever reason, they want him, and they want him, quote unquote, dead to rights. And this is right from TD's story. It said, now I can't even find the darn thing. The plea agreement also states that he provided imported, misbranded bronchodilators to Jason Service, and Navarro repeated in court that he had provided drugs to Service. So you go back to the original indictment, as awful as Service was, I thought Navarro came across even worse and even, scummier and more evil and what any horrible thing you want to say about him in the Service. But they are zeroing in on Jason, no doubt out about it. And now that Rita Glavin doesn't have to worry about Andrew Cuomo anymore, she better roll up her sleeves and get to work for her other client, Jason, or I'm sure she's plenty of clients, Jason Service, because he is in a lot of trouble. And you're right, I love this. I mean, Jorge Navarro has $25 million like you and I do. I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, that's all fine. Just look on paper. Oh my God, he's got to pay back $25 million. I mean, if he pays back $25 at the end of the day, I'd be surprised. But nonetheless, hey, great, turn the screws on him as much as you can. But and I suggested earlier, and I'm going to say this on the air, we need to go to San Quentin and do a show from there with our special guest is Jorge Navarro. I mean, you think the Saratoga thing would be big? How big would that be? Like Johnny Cash did it. Why can't we?
I was just typing in Gray Bar Hotel availability, and because I had no idea that that's what it was called. But that's great to know. I think the reason why there was a $25 million restitution tag on this is I heard as a rumor that when he walked into the courtroom, he actually walked in with a monocle and a top hat. So they must have thought that he had a lot of money.
There's only one guy in his room who might be able to pay that fine.
I don't know about that, but needless to say, that's a lot of money, and obviously, they must be looking strictly at the earnings that his horses earned over the years, and that's why they came up with the $25 million number. I think when the forensic accountants come in, it'll be a different number. But the bottom line, the most important part of this story is that yet another person who was indicted pleaded guilty, which is what we talked about, a year and a half ago, and is going down, which is great for the industry. But, Jason Service is going to be standing there without a chair in the musical chairs game. And it just goes to show you that if you ever get indicted, guys, be the first to the table to try to plea bargain, because if you're the last man standing, you're going to be, holding the bag for everyone else's misdeeds.
Yeah, well, that was one of the fascinating things when so many people were indicted. At the beginning, there were so many twists and turns that this could have taken. It seems now that it's all snowballing into the lap of Jason Service because more and more of these indictments are coming out. And Navarro is a big fish. He was the other big fish in the original indictments, and I don't know. Bill said that he seemed more evil and more underhanded than Jason Service. I think that's true, but I think that's mainly true because he was stupid enough to talk on the phone and text about these things, whereas Jason Service, I think possibly was a little bit more discreet about it, which is maybe why the feds want Navarro, being such a blabbermouth, to turn that on Jason Service. And just, I'm going to toss it to Bill in a second, but the other thing, and this horse is mentioned in the story, it says Navarro also admitted in court that he specifically administered drugs to XY Jet prior to the 2019 Dubai Golden Shaheen. I remember reading through those indictments when they first came down, and that was the one part that made me sick to my stomach the most out of all of it, was the way XY Jet was treated, and then he eventually dropped dead of a cardiac incident the year after, and that it was so sickening. It's sickening to drug any horse ever, but especially a horse that had done so much and laid so much on the line and made him so much money, for him to continue to be pumping that horse full of drugs to the point where he keels over and drops dead. That is pure evil. Like, that's cartoonish, movie villain level evil. And so when I think of these indictments and I see all the developments coming, I think of XY Jet and I think of the Juice Man video, and I think that this is finally a semblance of justice for these guys who were doing such wrong things in this business.
Yeah, and Joe, I just want to put a button on this, and I have this huge smile on my face right now because this completely morally bankrupt POS is literally on his way to prison, and boy, does he deserve it. And it's a great day for horse racing.
Yep, and Mark Casse just said it. He said it was one of his favorite days is when those indictments came down, and we were all really smiling and enthusiastic about it. And it's good to see this come finally to a bit of a conclusion. The only thing we can hope is that this is not the end, and there are more indictments coming in the future and more accountability coming, because this is some, but it sure as hell is not enough. We'll be right back after this message from the 2021 Minnesota Yearling Sale.
They're chasing Clickbait, who spurts clear by 5. It is Clickbait with a keen turn of speed, but Clickbait and Roy Mascherino's are gone. But Friday Night Star is going to debut victoriously in a stakes race. Friday Night Star is the star. Ready to run away, handling the distance with poise, and ready to run away is the Minnesota Oaks champion, with another display of excellence is the Futurity Champion.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of the TDN Writers Room, presented by Keeneland. A reminder that the Keeneland September catalog is available right now. 4,034 offerings. Make plans to be at the World's Yearling Sale. Keeneland September starts Monday, September 13th. You can learn more at catalog.keeneland.com. I want to thank Bill Finley, John Green, our Green Group Guest of the Week, Mark Casse, our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producer, Katie Ritz, and our editors, Anthony LaRocca, Aaliyah LaRocca, and Nathan Wilkinson. We will be in Saratoga next week for the 100th show. I can't believe we made it to 100 guys. Next Tuesday, we'll be at the television platform near the paddock, so it's a dark day. If you got nothing going on, come. We'll have crowd control, so it won't get too rowdy. You know, we have some diehard fans, but seriously, come say hello. I'll be at the track Friday and Saturday, maybe Sunday as well, and I'll be hanging around. So DM me, DM John, come say what's up. We love our fans, and we'd love to see you guys at Saratoga. We're super excited for it, so we'll see you next week live from the Saratoga paddock.